Okay, we are streaming live to YouTube at this point, and this meeting is now being recorded. And I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of our Realignment Committee for the fall 2025 through spring 2028 alignment period to order. It is May 21st at 9:01 a.m. Pacific time. And Ms. Wonder, if you wouldn't mind doing us the honors of calling the roll, please. And to do that would help if you would unmute.
Sorry about that. Forgot I did it. Brooke Formaster.
On our way in.
Okay. Joshua Katz.
Present.
Miles Baldwin.
Here.
David Vick, I believe maybe late. Sean Fitzsimons.
Present.
Ken Parker.
Here.
Mike Brooks.
Here.
Sarah Scott. Phil Tao.
Here.
Dallas Larson.
Present.
Jason Odegaard.
On his way in.
Rob Kittrell.
Present.
Wade Pearson. Paul Sullivan, I believe, is joining us late. Tammy Habig. Tony Polzine.
I'm here.
Domingo Rivera.
Here.
Isabel Sanchez. Art Anderson. Darvell Bell.
Here. Sorry, I was late.
Okay. Freeman Holbrook.
Here.
And Chris Magnum.
Here.
Mike Kofer.
Here.
Xavier Anthium.
Here.
Bob Levitt.
Here.
Bart Davis.
Here.
Timothy Jackson.
Here.
Paul Anderson.
Here.
And myself, Tia Wonder.
And thank you, Ms. Wonder. We will move on to item number 3, which is the approval of today's agenda, which you can see beginning on page 5 of your packet. We will entertain a motion from any voting member on the committee who wishes to make one regarding today's agenda.
Tony Polzine, 4A5A South. I'd like a motion that we approve today's agenda and make it a flexible agenda if possible.
Thank you, Mr. Polzine. Do we have a second?
Dallas Larson, 3A South. I will second.
Motion by Mr. Polzine, second by Mr. Larson to approve today's agenda and make it a flexible agenda. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor of this motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Move on to agenda item number 4, and that is the approval of the meeting minutes from our February 26th, 2025 meeting. That begins on page 8 and goes through page 11 of your packet. If you wouldn't mind giving that a moment, take a look, making sure that everything's good in there. And if you do find it as such, we would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the February 26th meeting.
Mr. Davis, I motion to approve the minutes from February 26th.
Mr. Baldwin with a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
Sean Fitzsimons, 2A South. I'll second the motion.
Motion by Mr. Baldwin, a second by Mr. Fitzsimons to approve the meeting minutes from the February 26th meeting. Any further questions, discussions, or comments? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. That motion passes. We move on to agenda item number 5, and that is the approval of the meeting minutes from our March 5th meeting, which was the appeals meeting for the winter sport placements. And that begins on page 12 of your packet. And again, if you wouldn't mind taking a moment, making sure that everything that you see is correct. And if you believe so, we would entertain a motion. And again, everybody, once you've had a chance to look that over, we would entertain a motion on the minutes from the March 5th meeting.
Tony Polzing, 485A South. I make a motion. We approve the minutes from the meeting you just referenced. Sorry.
March 5th?
Yeah, March 5th. Sorry. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome, sir.
Dallas Larson, 3A South, I'll second.
Motion by Mr. Polzien, second by Mr. Larson to approve the minutes of the March 5th, 2025 meeting. Any further questions, comments, or discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, please indicate by saying so. And that motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 6, which is committee chair comments and announcements. A few things shouldn't take too long. We will not be getting into postseason formats today. I know we still have wrestling to go back and do from the winter. Let's handle all postseason formats at our next meeting, which is next week. We'll take the wrestling postseason format and then all of the spring formats as well. Keeping in mind as we go through today, our policies and procedures that we are playing by today are the same that we played by when we aligned for the 23 through 25 part of our alignment process. Those policies and procedures were worked on by this committee. They were approved by our Board of Control back in September. So again, those are the rules we're playing by here today. We do have the meeting next week, May 28th. That will be for any schools wishing to appeal their placement in any of the spring sports. And for those of you listening in, we do ask that once the initial alignments are set by our committee today, if you wish to appeal, please let the NIA office know. Please inform us in writing by Friday, if you could. And we can get that information then into our meeting packet for next week's meeting. One other item we want to discuss here, Mr. Jackson, I'm going to pull you in for a part of this as well. Tahoe Truckee Unified School District has indicated through its Board of Trustees that it intends to stay members of the NIAA for at least one more year. Mr. Jackson, am I correct in that statement? Because it's kind of jumbled up in my own mind. And anything that you'd like to add on behalf of the NIAA with this?
That's correct, Bart. They are going nowhere for at least a year. They have indicated that to us, and we will continue to move forward with them in all facets of the NIAA membership. They never left, so therefore they do not have to reapply, and they are still full members in good standing and continue to be such. So we will realign them as normal, and we will realign and continue status quo until we are told otherwise.
Thank you. Yeah, just to be very clear, they will appear rather in the alignments that our office staff recommends today. When we get to those alignments, which is item number 8, please note 2 things. 1, these are just recommendations coming from our office to begin with. It's just a launch point. This committee can do what it wishes, putting teams where it needs to put them. It is not by any means a done deal, nor should it be considered as such. Also, when you see these alignments, if you've had a chance to look at them already, these proposed fire office alignments, do not assume that anybody is in a league. There no leagues are set up here. We will do that after we have had the full appeals meeting and this committee has a final recommendation to move forward to our Board of Control at its meeting in June. Okay. All right, I think that's it for that item. Let's move on to item number 7, which is public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not listed on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until notice procedures of the open meeting law have been met. Should a member of the public wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, it is asked that said person complete a public comment card and submit it to an NIAA staff member prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and/or 5 minutes for the spokesperson of a group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments that are deemed to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Mr. Jackson or Ms. Wonder, do we have anybody that wishes to make live public comment at the NIA office in Sparks?
No one here.
No one.
Thank you. There is nobody at my location. Do we have anybody at any of the locations where our committee members are who wish to make live public comment? Okay, I do believe we do have 2 submitted public comments submitted electronically. Ms. Wonder, if you wouldn't mind reading those into the record.
Okay, would you mind timing for me, please?
I will do that.
Thank you. Okay. First public comment is from Rex Hardy. At a recent realignment meeting, a member stated that it is not possible for competitive balance and enrollment protection to reside under the same roof. I couldn't agree more, especially after viewing the realignment recommendation provided in the packet for this meeting. While enrollment protection may work for some sports, it definitely does not work for the Southern-only sport of boys volleyball. The proposed realignment has top-tiered 4A schools with the rubric scores ranging from 160 to 167, competing in the same classification as bottom-tiered schools with scores ranging from 57 to 68, a full 100-point difference. In 3A, the top-tiered schools have the scores ranging from 129 to 165, competing in the same classification as schools ranging from no score, because they have never fielded a team, to 46. Anyone who has attended a volleyball match where one team is clearly superior to their opponent knows that the match is no fun to be a part of for either team or their fans, especially if one of those teams has had to travel a long distance to participate in such a blowout loss or victory. With that said, I would propose you use boys volleyball as your pilot program sport to see how classifications could be aligned and how competitive balance could be restored if you removed enrollment protection from consideration. I believe you could take the rubric scores and draw 2 lines where they make the most sense to provide 3 classifications to provide competitive balance and somewhat evenly sized classifications. The 4A with the 3A is way too big in my opinion. If you want to keep some semblance of enrollment protection in your realignment recommendation, you could provide an exception to keep enrollment protected schools from competing in the 5A. You have an opportunity to use the next 3 years with this one sport to see how this would work and would provide you some valuable input as you look at realignment for the next cycle. Let's not make this more complicated than it needs to be. Balance out boys volleyball by rubric scores and let these boys compete in a competitive environment that is best for all involved. I appreciate all you do and for your services committee. Rex Hardy, parent of 2 current volleyball players at 2 different schools. One sec. Okay. The next one is from Jimmy Greco Jr. Good morning. A few years ago, when our team Desert Pines appealed to be in the 3A, we were told that we would lose anyway, so why should we be considered? It is stated in the records. I would like to know why 3A is protected division. I do not think it is fair or equitable that there are only 6 teams from the South and 10 teams from the North in the 3A, while the Southern division of 4A has 28 teams. I know some teams are going to opt for 5A, but let's be honest, we are losing baseball players and other sports at tier 1 schools. It costs $200 for a glove, $75 to $120 for cleats, and let's not mention bats. We are playing 3-inning games due to the run rules, as players are only getting 1 at-bat per game and some are quitting. Out of the bottom teams remaining in the 4A, how many had winning seasons? There has to be a better, fair, more equitable way to realign these divisions. Why not make 4A and 4B The current rubric is not fair or equitable as it lowers points for playing in the 3A. Is this the way the NIAA wants student athletes to feel when playing at a tier 1 school? This does not promote the sport for longevity. It is killing it. This was supposed to be addressed in the last realignment, but it was not. When will the NIAA make it fair and equitable like the other states around Nevada? Why is 3A such a protected class? These questions need to be addressed before the next realignment, as no action will be taken at this time, as usual. Thank you.
And Ms. Wonder, that concludes the public comment you have?
Correct.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 8, and this is kind of the main reason we're here today. Our spring season sport placements, 3, 4, 5A. You can see we do have 6 sports that we'll be working with: baseball, softball, boys volleyball, which is a southern sport only at this time, boys golf, swimming and diving, and track and field. Beginning on page 21 of your packet, we'll start with baseball. And what you see on page 21 is a comparison for the North, which was 5A in this most recent cycle, how it has fared against the South's 5A and 4A over the course of 2 seasons. Baseball is the sport where we tend to have the most data between the northern schools and the southern schools. They meet up a lot in tournaments during the regular season. There are actually some pretty good rivalries when you stop and look at it. What I focus on here, and we get down to the bottom, as you see, the North did not have a winning record against either side. However, when you look at where we ended up in the state tournaments in both years, 24 and 25, we did end up with a North versus South final. In 2024, we went to the if game before Palo Verde won. This year, dodging lightning and hail and rain and everything else, Basic held off Reno 3-2 in a single game state final. We put this in here because this committee will be tasked with figuring out where the North should go, 5A or 4A, because again, we just don't have the sheer number of schools in the North that are enrollment-wise higher than those in the 3A, whereas we do a larger number in the South. When we move on to page 22, you will see what the recommendation is for our office to this realignment committee. On page 23 is the Southern rubric. We do not use a Northern rubric anymore because the 3A classification is determined by enrollment. And if we look at that rubric on page 23, really the first natural break here actually came after team number 3, which didn't really make a whole lot of sense to have a 3-team classification in the South. So where we ended up drawing the line here, and you can see that back on page 22, is we drew the line after Arborview. It gets really tight in here, and it's difficult to find a natural break. The reason we drew it after Arborview and in between Arborview and Coronado is when you start to break it down from year to year and you look at the most recent year, there is a significant drop off after Arborview. And that's what we base this on. Again, strictly a recommendation. We will open this up at this point for discussion by our committee and what direction you feel we need to go. And a reminder again, as we look at this, do not assume that these are leagues. They are not. This is just the placement. And I will tell you also in 4A, for those with the keen eye, you will notice Chaparral's in there twice. One of those Chaparral references should be Cheyenne. The autofill on Google got me and I didn't catch it in time. So Cheyenne is in the 4A. Chaparral's only in there once. And thank you also to Ms. Habig for catching that yesterday.
Art
Anderson.
4A, 5A North. For both baseball and then eventually softball, if we get there next, that we prefer the North prefers to stay in the 5A.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for that. And I don't want anybody to think I was assuming anything. I wasn't. But the North, this last time that we went through the alignment cycle, the North preferred to be 5A across the board in the spring. Unless there's compelling evidence to go otherwise, I didn't recommend they go otherwise, but that is, we do appreciate that inside knowledge, Mr. Anderson.
And that's correct. All across the board, there's not a sport that we're going to try to go down to 4A. We do have some schools that might try to appeal their placement.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Other comments, questions, thoughts here?
Tony Polzing, 4A, 5A South. Pardon my ignorance here, everyone. Durango's won 2 4A state titles in a row. Are their numbers so low? Is that has to do with the quality of opponent in 4A, which kind of was addressed by the public comment? Is that why their rubric scores are so low in 25 and 24?
That's part of the reason, Mr. Jackson. I don't know where we can go with this right now. He's shaking his head. Yes, the 4A, the lack of competitiveness in the 4A as it measured against the 5A was real trouble. Durango actually fell to 12th in that. Again, this committee, if it chooses, can maneuver any way we want to go here. Yeah, there's some things we can't talk about at this point, but we will be able to at some point down the road. Yeah, as you see that, and let me go back to the rubric page. Those top 11 teams all ended up 5A teams. It was not, 4A was not terribly competitive against the 5A at all. And that did weigh a lot of things down on the rubric scores. Durango was the highest scoring team in 4A. Not a whole lot above Sierra Vista, and really not a whole lot of separation from Secta Legacy or Silverado either. Mr. Jackson, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Bart. I know we haven't gotten it officially in writing yet, but I don't think we're talking out of line here that we've been notified by 2 schools that are on the list right now that they intend to appeal up.
Yeah.
It may behoove us just to talk about that and just say, listen, they're already talking about it. We might want to consider it, that being Coronado and Shadow Ridge. And I think the committee ought to look at that, because then if you compare that to the Northern 5A, you line up with the exact same number of schools, whether somebody appeals out or not. But I wonder if sometimes if we shouldn't just make the move now and then allow the appeal back, perhaps. I don't know. But I see that as a potential to move this forward and to stave off any unnecessary appealing that we know is going to come. We've already been notified that they're going to appeal. So it's just, they can't appeal until after we have this meeting officially.
And I will tell you that my philosophy as I went through this, there are some tough spots to draw the line as we go across all sports. I would always rather have a school appeal up than put somebody in a spot where they can't compete and appeal down, because that appeal down is a lot harder than that appeal up. But Mr. Jackson's 100% correct. Coronado has reached out by phone. I believe Shadow Ridge has reached out by a preliminary email to say that they intend to appeal up to 5A. Ms. Habig, your hand is up.
Sorry, it took me, I couldn't remember how to do the raise hand.
You're good.
I'm kind of with Tony on this one. It's a hard pill to swallow for a team to win state 2 years in a row and not get moved up. And I think when we look at strength of schedule, I don't think they should be rewarded for not playing 5A teams. Like, I know our strength of schedule is strong because we did play 5A teams. Now, we didn't fare as well, obviously, but I feel like I'd be comfortable saying, okay, if we know Coronado, Shadow are going to appeal up, we draw the line after Durango. Because when you win 2 state championships, not to have to move up is a hard pill for anybody to swallow.
No, I don't disagree with that statement at all. I actually had one coach reach out to me and ask, hey, can we go 18 deep in the 5A in the South? And I'm not quite sure that that's quite the number that stands out here, although I could see his rationale behind it. Again, what I gave you to start with is only a recommendation. What this committee wants to do, this committee has the freedom to do.
Yeah, Tony, 4A, 5A South, I do know there's at least one other school that has not been mentioned that will probably appeal up. It's not Foothill, but
And it's not Legacy, I can tell you that.
there is at least one other school that's down there that would appeal up. So I think that would be the question: is how many teams are we willing to put into 5A? And I know I've talked about this with individuals. I mean, if you look at those top, 17, 18 teams on any given day, they beat each other.
Yep.
So baseball's a weird one because there are a lot of really good programs in baseball in both divisions.
And this year especially, when we looked at that 5A in the South, and I'm trying to find my composite schedule as we're talking here, just to pull this up. There was one of those two leagues that, oh my goodness, you just didn't know day by day who was going to win. I mean, that was kind of one of those things that, as the guy who hopes for competitive balance, I looked at it and went, this is cool. As the guy who has to figure out the tiebreakers, I went, not so much. But that 5A Desert, the team that finished first was 8-4 in the league. The team that finished last was 4-8 in a 7-team league. And we did this time around, we had 14 teams in the 5A South. There was one in there, at least, that you could make the argument might not have belonged this year. They're not among the group we're talking about right now. But again, what this committee wants to do, that's up to you guys here. If we can go as deep as you want to go. But what I'm hearing right now, at least, is if we can draw the line correctly, I'm hearing from this committee right now, they want to go at least 12. Mr. Kofer, you have your hand up.
Yeah, was there a limit, a max and a min on 5A? I thought there was a limit.
No, we had the limit the last time around. We had it between 9 and 14.
Yeah, that's what I remember. That's gone.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm late to the party on that.
No worries. With this time around, we didn't really want to put a limit on it because we might have some situations, and we did, where the 5A needed to be tighter than that 9.
Looking at this, I mean, certainly, yeah, you look at the top 3, there's a definite difference there, but you are talking baseball. I mean, I think the more the merrier, and it takes a little bit of burden off of 4A as well. I mean, I was hearing anybody complaining about the number in 4A, but it's always huge. And you get a large discrepancy. You get such a big discrepancy from top to bottom there.
Mm-hmm.
Here, if you could go down, like you say, you could go down to 18, with Virgin Valley being 3A and Meadows being 3A. And I think, I don't know. It seems like it would create more equal competition through divisions if you had a couple more.
Yeah.
It's so tight. It's so tight from 4 to 18. I mean, really, if you look at, one behind another. I'm not saying tight from 4 to 18, but 4 to 5 is tight, 5 to 6 is tight, 6 to 7 is tight, all the way down the line, Yeah,
so it's tough to find a spot in here to draw a line that's conclusive, no question.
Yeah, but I think Tim's point is valid. If you got 2 teams that we already know are kind of looking to push up, does that help the situation? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Habig, then Mr. Magrum.
You can go ahead and have him go first because I was going to get ready to make the motion.
Okay. Mr. Magrum.
Yeah, I was just going to say kind of along the lines of what Mike was saying. I mean, as in, a northern guy that really, unfortunately don't have a big understanding of what those teams look like in Vegas. My initial thought looking at it, I hit that first 3A team and this top 18 might not be a bad number for the 5A and that cutoff. So that was just kind of my initial thought looking at it, was right around that 18 mark. And, again, with the huge amount of schools down there, I think that is a benefit to having the 5A a little larger and shrinking that 4A down a little bit where, I mean, you said yourself that, realistically that, what were those, Secta, Legacy, and Silverado were still pretty close in there too, to where those top 4A teams were with Durango and Sierra Vista.
Thank you, Mr. Magrum. Anyone else? Comments, questions, concerns here?
Tony Polzing, 4A5A South. I think part of the issue though, and I think we see this in softball too, is that if you put too many in there, then it's the same quality of play that we discussed in football. Like, is that 4A championship legitimate? You know what I'm saying? I mean, if we put 18, let's just say for giggles, 18 teams in 5A, those 4A, that 4A division, I mean, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody. It's bad. And there's so many of those schools. There won't be JV games, as X could probably attest to. A lot of schools don't have JV programs. So I would be careful to put too many teams in 5A because you're just going to completely make 4A an obsolete division, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I will say also, this is something we've kind of been cautious of as we've gone along. The more teams that you put into 5A, the farther away that bottom team gets from number one. And that's very true in the 4A also, right? But that 5A, as Mr. Polzing alluded to, it's a little different level of play when you take it as a whole. Ms. Habig, you have your hand up.
I think, kind of to echo what Tony said, and also to bring up what someone else said before, I agree with him 1,000%. And again, I think some of those lower teams, it's strength of schedule again. Like I look not so much that low, go up a little bit more, but like, and again, I know Legacy just because it's my school, but we're higher up on there because of strength of schedule, not because of wins. Like we didn't make postseason last year and we lost to a team below us this year, but we always play up during the season. So I think we have to remember that as well. Some teams just don't ever play up. So I would not feel comfortable going all the way down to 18, 17, 18. I'm with Tony. I think I'd rather go like 12. And then if teams want to appeal up underneath that, great. If they don't, then they don't.
Mr. Polzing, your hand's back up. Mr. Kofer, yours is up too. I don't know if you still want to comment. Mr. Polzing, go ahead and then we'll come back.
Yeah, Tony Polzing, 4A5A South. And if you look at what we've traditionally done this year, we've shrunk 5A in almost every sport in order to increase the quality in 4A to make that a more competitive division. So if we expanded, that would be going against everything that we've done for every realignment up to this point.
Okay. And Mr. Kofer, you're good? Okay, I just saw your hand go down. Anyone else wish to comment here?
No.
Ms. Habig.
No, I'm just going to make the motion if nobody else comments.
Whenever you're ready, ma'am, you may go ahead.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we draw the line after 12 for 5A. So the top 12 teams will be 5A and then 13 out below will go down to 4A. And the North would also stay in 5A.
Okay, we have a motion on the table from Ms. Habig for the top 12 in the rubric scoring in the South to be in the 5A, along with the North being in the 5A, from 13 down that are 4A eligible would be in the 4A. Do we have a second?
Art Anderson, 4A5A North, I second.
Motion by Ms. Habig, seconded by Mr. Art Anderson. Any further questions, discussion, or comments?
Tony Polzing, 4A5A South. And this would address the two appeals that Mr. Jackson was referring to, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments, discussion? Okay, call for the question. All in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, we have a baseball alignment at least for a week till we hear appeals. Thank you. And we will move on to softball next, which is on page 25. That's the comparison between North and South. And the South actually won 2 5A state titles here. The championship game in 2024, that was a good one. I do remember that I was there. Coronado and Douglas playing in the state final. And then this year, the state final was actually held in the North and contested between Palo Verde and Centennial. Spanish Springs and Reed were the two teams there this year. You can see the numbers at the bottom, the North going 1-11 against the 5A South. and then going 9-1-2 against the 4A South. But as Mr. Art Anderson alluded to earlier, the indication was the North wanted to remain in the 5A in softball. On page 26, you see our softball rubric, and those with a keen eye can find a natural break here. Unfortunately, that first natural break comes after number 5, and that's really not quite deep enough here to get us a viable league. But it is a very, very clear top 5. The recommendation from our office, once you get through the entire rubric, was actually 8, and that carried down to include Liberty, Bishop Gorman, and 4A Champion Basic. There was a 19-point gap between Basic in 8th and Green Valley in 9th. The next 4A, 5A eligible team was Durrell Red Rock, which played in the final this year in 4A, and they were 11 points behind Green Valley. So again, as we look at the recommendation, sorry for making you dizzy, we drew the line after Basic and just a 6-team 3A here in the South, unfortunately. Hopefully some other programs come on board before long, but that's what we've got as a launch point. Discussion here, comments, questions. Ms. Habig, you want to start?
I mean, I like this one at 8. Like Tony said, 4A softball is a lot like 5A baseball or 4A baseball. You have your few top teams, and then it's a drastic drop off. But yeah, I mean, the only other break I see is after 11. And there's a 9 point. But
11-point break between Durrell Red Rock and Desert Oasis.
yeah, 11 point. So I mean, those would be the only 2 spots I could see drawing it. I would be fine with either one, but I don't know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, I did not get a chance to see the 5A tournament this year, the state tournament, with that being in Reno. I don't think I saw any of the region tournament this year either. The 4A I did see a bit of out at Faith Lutheran. I saw some 5A teams play during the regular season, and that Palo Verde team that sits number 1 in the rubric, and actually, if you want to talk natural break, it's actually after 1. That Palo team this year, for those who don't know, ran the table. They went undefeated. Other comments or questions here?
Tony Posing, 4A, 5A South. I think you may have one of those below 8 that may potentially plan on appealing up. It's the same school for baseball. I don't have 100% accurate information on that, but that the potential is there for one of those below 8 to appeal up.
I'm a little bit Sherlock Holmes enough that I could probably guess that school at this point too. So, but Mr. Jackson, we've not heard anything, at least I haven't. Have you, from any schools at this point wishing to appeal up in softball?
No, and I think if that holds true, it probably would hold true for baseball and softball. I'd imagine that playing Sherlock Holmes, obviously. And I think that moving forward, I think we'd be good with letting them do that appeal on the regular thing. I don't think we should jump that far on this one, and let them do their appeal to go up. If you understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, Tony, 4A, 5A South. It is 9. I mean, and I just got a text. They would plan on appealing up. So
I'd say we let that, if that's going to happen, I'd say we let them do that then.
okay.
If the committee so desires to draw the line after 8. I mean, if they want to draw the line after 9, then draw it after 9. Draw it up.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say, if we know they're gonna appeal up, Boulder City's not even in the talk. The next week is after Doral, so maybe we do it after Doral. And make it between Doral and Desert Oasis.
And that would give you 10.
I think that might be smarter, because that would give us an even number. And Doral was in the state championship both years in a row.
Yeah.
They were very competitive. So.
Other comments, questions from our committee here? If not, we would entertain a motion for where we wish to draw the line and how we wish to operate.
I'll do it if no one else will.
You're on fire. Go ahead.
Hey, listen, it's the end of the year. I'm ready to go. I'll make a motion that we draw the line between number 11 and number 12 for 5A. Meaning the top 11 will go up, 12 will go down, and the North will again stay in 5A.
And then obviously Boulder City, which is not eligible
Right, they
for
would go
placement.
stay in 3A, obviously.
Okay. Motion on the table from Ms. Habig that we draw the line between 11 and 12, giving us 10 teams in the Southern 5A. The North would also be 5A in softball. Do we have a second?
Chris Magrum, 4A, 5A North, I'll second the motion.
Motion by Ms. Habig, second by Mr. Magrum. Any further questions, comments, or discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, there's our alignment for softball to move forward. We move on to boys volleyball, and that rubric begins on page 29. You again will see there is no comparison here between the North and the South because the North doesn't play boys volleyball. When you start to look here, there's a real natural break after number 2 because Coronado and Palo Verde have had pretty good runs these last 2 years. Where we chose to draw the line here for our recommendation came right after number 7, Basic in Sierra Vista, that straddling line. There is an 18-point difference, roughly, between 7th place Basic in the rubric and 8th place Sierra Vista in the rubric. Again, strictly a first launching point from our office. This committee has the option to do what it wishes. Obviously, when you look at number 9 there, Boulder City, 3A. And this was a sport, before we get too deep into this, we weren't sure if we were going to have enough teams to have a viable 3A. When you look at the recommendation on page 31, we actually do have 9 schools that would be 3A based that have indicated they would have boys volleyball. Now, Founders was unable to field a team this past year. They would be a concern. American Heritage is a new full member coming in for the start of the next alignment cycle. Pahrump Valley's program also would be new. They have indicated they believe they will have the numbers to have a boys volleyball team. So it is a little bit dicey, maybe. I don't know if that's the word I want to use. I don't know if that's too strong. But we do have enough teams, we think, to have a viable 3A and would not have to wrap the 3A into the 4A in boys volleyball. Again, we'll go back to the top of the rubric here and we will open up the discussion for where this group feels we need to draw a line for 5A. Ms. Habig, you have your hand up.
I think, I mean, that looks like a natural line. I think as long as we know that we're going to have a viable 3A, I would feel comfortable with that. If we didn't and we had to wrap them up into 4A, I would think we would need to expand 5A a little bit because I would just put way too many teams in 4A. But if you're comfortable with that, I would be okay with that too.
Mr. Jackson, I'm going to pull you in and put you on the spot because I don't get that opportunity very often. How comfortable do we feel with this? Right now, as we sit here in May, it becomes pretty easy to say we feel comfortable for next February or March. That's a long ways off too.
Yeah. For 3 years.
Correct.
Right, because I mean, we're 36. There's already 33 teams that, and then you add another 6 or 7, you're at 40 in 4A. And then 7 in 5A.
So Bart, let's go through the list here and take a look at who's in there and who had a team this year. So with that, the school that didn't have a team this year was Founders.
Correct.
Everyone else had a team.
Okay.
With the exception of Pahrump, which is starting its program.
I'm confident Pahrump would not add a sport if they didn't have the wherewithal to field it. I don't think Mr. Odegaard's last action as the athletic director at Pahrump would be to put a team out there to fail, because we would never let him down, knowing how much we all love him dearly. So that being said, everyone down there had a team this year with all indications that they should have a team next year, with the exception of Founders. If you take Founders out of that mix and they do not field a team, that still leaves you at 8. Considering the fact that the 5A right now is set at 7, it does have the strength of support that way. I am confident, at least for this year, moving forward with it at about, as much confidence as the executive director can have in anything. So I threw that out there. Nice turn of phrase. So I think we are okay. I understand the concern. I think the bigger concern is for the schools that have multiple levels, there are going to be no lower levels for the most part in 3A, which is not an uncommon thing. We know that. And that becomes a scheduling thing for Xavier and the schools to work through. But from our standpoint for the postseason, I think we would have a viable 3A league.
Mr. Kofer, then Mr. Larson, then Mr. Fitzsimons, as the hands are up in a row. Mr. Kofer.
Sorry, maybe I should know this, but I don't get the projected sport sheets that are sent in for each school. Are these for American Heritage Founders and Cristo Rey? Is this their spring sport for boys? Or are they listing another projected spring sport for boys? If this is their spring sport for boys, they're kind of, wrenched in, leveraged in, say, hey, we got to have this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they're running track or swim or playing. I don't see these teams with baseball programs.
Correct. And in some cases, again, they may have a couple of kids that are running track, for instance.
Yeah.
So to say that they wouldn't have anybody else, I don't know if that's a fair statement yet at this point. I would have to go back and look through those questionnaires. Founders did fully intend to have a team this year. And then that became a little bit of a yo-yo at the start of the year. They were in, they were out, they were in, they were out. And they just didn't have the numbers at the end.
And then sorry to
no, you're good. You're good.
Regarding the lower level, I mean, it is a dual participation sport.
Mm-hmm.
So that does make it a little bit easier to provide for a lower level. Those kids are playing a lot more games, but it makes it easier to field. That's the reason we have that.
Right.
Is so that we can field these lower level programs, with dual participation.
Correct. Mr. Larson.
Yeah, I guess my question is more in general about the process of schools that are saying they're going to offer a sport. In the question that gets sent out, is it more of a, would you like to offer this sport? Or is it a, hey, we want to know who will offer this sport? I think I'm dealing with some fall things that I feel like there's some schools that were aligned in 3A and fall that when I try to reach out, they're still trying to just, do a questionnaire and provide we're trying to field this sport. So Tim, is this question more of a, when it goes out to these smaller schools, is it a, we will, or is it, would you like to offer this sport?
It's not a like, it's planning to.
It is, yeah, it is intent.
Intent.
Okay.
The word I hate more than life itself is the word intent. What is your intent?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm wrong, but I thought I remembered a regulation in the NCAA that if you were over a certain amount of enrollment, that you could automatically have that sport without any problem. But if you were under a certain enrollment, you still had to show going in that you could field that sport. Am I wrong? Is that just a misconception I've had?
Mr. Jackson, you want to take that one?
No, because I don't know that regulation.
You're not incorrect on that one, Dallas, but also in the case of American Heritage, they actually have had a team that has been competing for boys volleyball these past couple of years. And they have shown that through while working in as a rising member. I forget the exact term that we use for that school. That's the one team that they have been fielding consistently in the spring is the boys volleyball.
I'm generally in other fall sports, I guess.
Mhm.
Even though they're a member, any member can just say we're going to have a team next year, and they automatically will be put into the league if they say they're going to have that. They don't have to show that they've built a team and have fielded a team in the past to then, as long as they're already a member in another sport, they can just offer that sport.
As a full member, you have the opportunity to offer any sport that we sanction, obviously in the NIA. Mr. Jackson, feel free to jump in at any point here because I am certainly not the regs guy either. We have allowed that. We also have allowed, as you'll recall, we had a long discussion about this at the realignment committee and the board level about teams that didn't field a program then going to independent status. But we also decided at the end of that the executive director would have that ability to then turn around and go, okay, you know what, you're good. You're going to be all right. We'll put you back on full status. And when you look at a case like Founders, that's something that Mr. Jackson and I discussed a couple of times, actually, and agreed that we would give them the chance to start fresh with the start of a new cycle, coming in as full once again in the 3A until they prove otherwise. Mr. Jackson, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
Nope, you nailed it.
So just to finalize, if any of these teams here say they're going to have it and in the first year don't, they are done for the rest of this 3-year alignment. They can't all of a sudden come back in year 2 or year 3. They would have to wait till the next alignment to join a league.
Yeah, they're not done in that they can still have the program. It would just go on independent status for the remainder of that cycle.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Fitzsimons and then Mr. Anthian.
Yeah, most of my questions have been answered, I guess, already. I'd only argue that with Founders, I spoke to their athletic director yesterday, and he still is a little bit struggling on going to get a team. And I guess some of the things that were answered already were lower levels in that 3A. Because as you may or may not know, American Heritage and Founders for the committee are 2A schools, but we don't have volleyball for boys in 2A. So my concern only would be the lack of numbers for 3A. And then my suggestion was to, why don't we just make class 5A, draw that line at Vista, and so you have an even 8. But again, that's just me thinking as a scheduler and making things easier. So like I said, most of my things have already been answered. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzsimons. I believe you just won over a fan in Mr. Anthian, but I'm going to let him speak for himself. Mr. Anthian.
Yeah, so just want to touch, we've been talking about Founders Academy specifically. So a couple points that were brought up, I just want to share out. So to Mike Kofer's point, they do have track. And I think that was some of the concern is that they intended to have volleyball, but they lost kids because those boys, in lieu of playing volleyball, wanted to run track. So that was kind of the slow progression, the slow death of their boys volleyball program. The other concern that I have is that we locked the schedule at a certain day. This past year for spring sports, it was February 4th. Well, Founders cut their B program on February 5th. Then they cut their JV program on February 18th. And then with already 3 games that should have been played at the varsity level, then they decided to cancel their season on March 11th. So I have concerns with Founders specifically. I know that the athletic director would like to have the program. I know that they had a change in coaches. I don't know if they have a coach currently. But to Dallas's point, and what has been said already, if there's any way to verify, like for sure, you will have at minimum a varsity level program. And they need to commit and ensure that they have one instead of, hey, let's see if we can maybe hopefully have one. I think there's a possibility of saying like, hey, if you're not for sure about it, why don't you go independent? My 2 cents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anthian. Other comments, questions, concerns here? Okay, if there are none, then again, we'll go back to the screen with a rubric and where the numbers were, and we will ask our voting members on our committee if somebody would like to make a motion for where we draw the line and who exactly we put into the 5A and the 3A. some point, we do need a motion here, guys.
I'll make a motion, I guess.
I think everybody was waiting for you, Ms. Habig.
I'll make a motion that we draw the line, I guess, after 7.
Okay.
Between basic and Sierra Vista.
Okay.
For 5A, 4A.
Okay. Any change at all to the 3A based on the discussion that we've had? I don't mean to lead your motion at all. Just want to make sure we have a full motion.
I guess I would be confused on the 3A. Would it be as presented?
You could do that if you wished.
Okay. And to, I would like to add into the motion that the 3A be the group that is presented on the screen.
We have a motion on the table from Ms. Habig. Do we have a second?
Dallas Larson, 3A South. I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion by Ms. Habig, second by Mr. Larson. We would take the top 7 in the rubric that would go into the 5A, 3A as presented on your screen and on page 31 of the packet. Any further questions or discussions here? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you, everybody. Motion passes. We move to boys golf. And this is starting on page, lost my place, 32. And you can see the comparison again between the North and the South. In the 5A state tournaments, the North was 5A in boys golf this year. You can see where everybody finished. Bishop Manogue this year, 3 strokes behind Shadow Ridge for 3rd. As we look at last year, the top 3 have been Southern teams both years. I get a little bit gun shy when it comes to comparing numbers between the 5A and the 4A state tournaments because they are played on different courses, and especially this year, they were played in very different conditions. Those of you who witnessed the 5A tournament in the South did so by freezing one day and getting drenched another day with a whole lot of wind in between. The 4A state, we actually did have to stop play on the first day because of lightning. But the second day was very good condition wise. Mr. Art Anderson, I'm going to pull you back in here, or anybody else from our committee 4A, 5A North. Mr. Art Anderson, I believe you indicated 5A was where the North felt it should be for this next cycle as well. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, Art Anderson, 5A, 4A North. That is correct. Obviously we don't have as many good golfers, but the ones that are at the top tier, they're pretty competitive.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, as you can see, the top 10 individuals in the state tournament in both years, the North had the second place finisher individually. When we start to look at the rubric, and let me try to blow this up for you a little bit because the numbers are, holy goodness, are they hard to read. Okay, that got a little carried away, but there we go. All right, when we look at our rubric numbers here, the real kind of first natural break, there are 2 of them that are pretty close to each other. But as we look down at the recommendation also on page 34, wow, that's big. We went top 9 and drew that line between Sierra Vista and Arborview, a difference there over 2 years of roughly 21.5 points. And again, our golf rubric is average score over par for those rounds for a team. So Coronado with the best number, 13.4 over the course of 2 years, 2 years added together. We drew the line again between 9 and 10, Sierra Vista and Arborview. If you look down at what our recommendation was, and we may need to not blow that one up so much. We have a top 9, and then we have 6 teams in the Southern region in 3A to go along with the 11 in the 3A that we have for the North. Cheyenne is marked with an asterisk in the 4A. Cheyenne did not field a team this year. We are uncertain about their status going forward, but we do have them listed in 4A for now for this group to consider. We will open it up for questions, and Ms. Habig, you are the first to raise your hand. Go ahead, please.
When you say field team, do you mean like no golfers, correct?
Nobody.
Okay, because I was going to say majority of 4A doesn't field a team.
Yeah.
They have 1 to 2 maybe.
There wasn't a kid teeing it up for them all year.
Okay, so that just means they didn't have a single golfer.
Correct.
Okay. I think I feel like this was one that, of course, everyone knows is one of my favorites, but I went back and forth with this one because I feel like it's the same with girls. I feel like I'm more comfortable with the break after Liberty between 12 and 13 because that's where the next natural break is. Obviously, you have to throw out who's the Boulder City because they're 3A. And then that makes it a how many would it be? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. I go back and forth with it, but I look at Arborview and Liberty are 2 of your biggest high schools in Las Vegas, and at any point in time are very competitive in golf. They just maybe weren't as competitive these last couple of years, but I feel like I feel more comfortable going after Liberty and then Centennial down with 4A.
And I'm going to follow up on a question with that. Not that I'm questioning your judgment in any way, but if we look at the gap between Liberty and Centennial, which is about 8.1, the next team that would be 4A, 5A eligible is actually Basic, and that gap would be 18.25 between Centennial and Basic then, with Virgin Valley and Pahrump out of the equation because they are 3A.
I know it's a huge gap. That's why I looked at that as well because this is another one of those sports where it's hard, but
yes,
it's definitely difficult. I mean, the biggest difference I think the only real thing that we have to, and we can't really think about it when we look at competitiveness, is what makes it a little different is access to courses.
Right.
That makes it a little bit different because you think that in 4A, you have 7, 8 teams in a division, 10 teams in a division, and you think you're going to have a small number of golfers, and then you end up with a bigger number of golfers, then that kind of can throw you off anytime from year to year. And especially with the next realignment cycle being 3 years, that's huge. I mean, I would be comfortable going all the way down to there as well, because again, like you said, the rest of those are all 3A. So, I mean, I want someone else's opinion besides mine, but I personally, just knowing golf and watching it for the last 5 years, feel like it definitely needs to be at least below Liberty.
Other questions, comments, thoughts from our committee members?
There's got to be someone else.
Mr. Odegaard.
Thank you.
So when we look at drawing a line, moving more teams into 5A, Tammy, you might be able to answer this better than anybody. What does that leave for 4A? You said that there's a lot of schools don't even field a full team. So if we move more teams out of 4A into 5A, how many teams is that going to leave, and what's the competitiveness of that?
There's still, so when I say teams, like when I'm saying teams, I'm saying they're at least fielding 4 golfers.
Right.
To score. I think when I counted yesterday, it would still leave 8, 9 teams, people that filled teams. Now, again, golf is one of those sports you don't know who's coming. Like baseball, softball, football, you usually know who your kid's coming in. Our golf, you never know. You could get the next best kid in the state and not even know their zone for you because there's no junior feeder golf type teams. But there's still definitely teams in 4A that will field teams. Yeah, I mean, I've watched because we went from 3A to 4A.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of the 5A because of regionals and, you know, competitions that were at the same courses as they are sometimes. I think adding 2 more teams that are currently sitting in 5A, they're already in 5A. We wouldn't be moving them from 4A up to 5A. They're currently in 5A already. They would just stay in 5A.
And this may help the committee or it may further confuse you. Our rubric scores, when you are short a golfer for a match, that score is automatically
Double par.
a double par plus 1 stroke per hole. So if you're playing a par 72 course, that absent golfer is taking a score of 90. So when you start looking at these numbers and you go down on this rubric, if you're seeing teams with a score of 89.4, they're filling out teams because that 90 score would already put them above 89.4. When you get down a little bit deeper, you're probably looking 23, 25, somewhere in there that are consistently fielding 4 golfers or mostly fielding 4 golfers. Cimarron, probably not. They're in the middle of that at 192.
We're not either. Legacy's not. We haven't had 4 in 3 years.
You're taking a 90 then, and you're taking 3 pretty good scores.
We have 2,
Yeah.
sometimes 3.
But you look at Clark this year, which was 66. Clearly, they are filling all 4 spots.
They absolutely fill all 4 spots.
Right.
Yeah. Doesn't
So
mean they're necessarily competitive, and I think that's where golf makes it harder. You may be filling 4 golfers, but they might be shooting 110.
you could legitimately fill 4 golfers who are still missing the cut.
Yes.
In every match in the South. Mr. Magrum, you've had your hand up for a while.
No, I just wanted to add in, as somebody that's coached golf in our state, I don't know how the South is in the courses with working with the schools, just with the idea of expanding the number of teams in the 5A. If that would push to where that's kind of hitting the limit from a course as to how many golfers they might be able to field at one tournament at a time. I know, like in the North, we split into 2 leagues because of that. So I didn't know if that 7 to 9 might be that difference that creates an issue with, you know, having to split them up, or if the courses would be able to manage, you know, having 9 schools there compared to 7. Just throwing out that idea because I'm not sure where you guys are at with that.
Yeah, I can address that to a little bit, and then Ms. Habig, I know you can too, because your golf coach is the one who's arranging a lot of this for us. In talking with Mr. Thornton, who is our Southern golf coordinator, especially with the 4A, he likes the idea of bigger leagues with the 4A because they're not filling out full teams, and the bigger the league, the more options you may have for getting a course. When you look at the 5A, if we get larger, we probably do need to split into 2 leagues because those 5A schools would field the full complement of 6 in most cases. If you start running a 9-team tournament with 6 golfers each, that's 54. That's a lot of tee times. And I think North and South were both coming to that realization that tee times are becoming more and more precious and few. Ms. Habig.
Yeah, Chris, I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly why I wanted to move the other 2 up so that it would be a split of 2 for the 5A, so that they would have the 2 divisions. Because right now, 1 division with those teams would be a lot harder because they would fill they would have 4 to 6 golfers probably, actually. Some of them will have 6, and that would be very, very hard for a team to give up, for a course to give up that many tee times. So if we do draw the line where Liberty and Arbor stay up, that gives it 2 viable sides.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure. And
yeah,
I'm
glad you brought that up because that was the other note I wrote down.
Okay. Yeah, I know it's been a battle up here for a while, and then I can go back to, you know, the 90s when I was golfing in high school, and we had everybody in the North at one with however many that was, 12, 14 schools, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Of courses were giving it to us, and that's definitely not the world we live in now. And so I wasn't sure if that was better or worse to get to 2 leagues for you guys, but it sounds like that gives us a good idea.
Yeah, I think it actually makes it better.
Okay, other questions, comments, or concerns here? If not, we would entertain a motion on, again, where to draw the line.
Sure, I'll keep going with it. Why not? Oh, Ken has something to say.
Mr. Parker, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, Ken Parker, Needles 2A South. I know we're going to get into a motion here on drawing a line, all that, but 2A South for Needles Golf, Lake Mead Golf, Tonopah, which really isn't South. We've had a big issue in the last couple of years regarding getting into matches. For Needles, obviously pretty easy. We can backfill with non-conference stuff, Arizona schools, but we really do not have a Southern League in golf at all. It's really just Lake Mead and us and Tonopah if they can get down, depending on weather. I don't think Tonopah necessarily has to come all the way down here all the time or us up there. I think, and depending on how they can get into maybe the White Pine section. But Lake Mead and Needles are really struggling on getting into quality matches with more than one team. We would like to, if possible, and I've talked to Jay regarding this as well at Lake Mead, we would like to get into 3A for league matches and then obviously exit for our 2A regional tournament and state tournament. We just think that our kids deserve league matches that just don't condense with just one other team. So I don't know where the 3A feels about this. We would love to jump in, do what we can. We can host, we can do whatever we can, to accommodate, to help you guys out. That helps us. But I know I talked to a couple of 3A people and they're okay with it, but I just needed to announce that we would like to do that if possible.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Mr. Fitzsimons, then Mr. Larson.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Parker's approached me on this issue along with Jay Schrader over at Lake Mead. I've mentioned things to Dallas Larson. I'll lead it to him as well. But I think they have done that in the last couple of years. I don't want to date anybody on the committee, but where some of those 2A South schools would jump in on some of these golf courses and golf matches. And if you look how we've realigned that Southern 3A region, looks like they could use a couple more teams to golf with. So thank you.
One thing I want to point out here too, because again, lack of sleep will get you every time. That should be Elko in the 3A Northern region, not Eldo. That's Elko. Elko's an actual school. Mr. Larson, then Mr. Baldwin.
Yeah, I know Bill Darrowbeck used to call us all the time and see if he could, the Needles could join when we hosted our 3A Southern region golf match. I'm not, based on the conversation I'm hearing about tee times with if we had 8, I'd have to make sure the golf course would be fine, but I feel like that with 8 schools, I'll leave it up to the golf experts, but if they would like to try to join and we could make that work, I think the 3A South could probably make that accommodation to help out Needles and Lake Mead and some of that.
I haven't talked to Jay regarding, where he still stands on this. He was pro for it during the season at the end of last year. If it's not all the matches, we just need to get something else other to help our kids out, where they're playing on some quality courses, and at least being more involved with obviously the season.
Ken, what were your numbers, Ken, in boys golf and Lake Mead golf? Was how many kids?
We had 10 for ours, 1 girl. Our girls played in the spring as well, and then Lake Mead, I want to say, had 7, 8. Tonopah was low. I think they had 6. If I remember right.
Mr. Baldwin, then Mr. Odegaard.
So with 2A East anyway, up here, we do something similar where Elko JV, Spring Creek JV join our 2A matches. So I think it'd be kind of the reverse for Needles and Lake Mead if they would join 3A matches for, and then of course the divisionals we separate out there. And then as well as tee time, this is probably more geared towards next week's discussion. But talking with our golf coaches in the 2A in the rural areas, they threw some ideas out that I think I'll bring next week when we're talking postseason.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Odegaard.
Yeah, just to add to Mr. Parker's request, he and I had visited about it. I've talked to a couple of golf coaches, and I think that they're on board. They don't see an issue with that. I do think they were hopeful that maybe Needles and maybe Lake Mead even then would host a match that all the 3A schools could get to. So there'd be another course to go to.
Absolutely. Needles has no problem hosting.
Tee them up at River's Edge and get them ready to go.
Out of the RV.
Mhm. We didn't get a chance to get out there. I do like that you made the connection there this year, though. Okay. I don't know that we need to necessarily align Needles and Lake Mead here because, again, they're going to play 2A in the postseason in their tournament. We would just have maybe some sort of an agreement that during the course of the regular season, Needles and Lake Mead would be folded into league play in the 3A South. I throwing that out there. I don't make all the rules. But if we're good with that, again, we'd entertain a motion. I'm going to go back up into the rubric on where we draw the line here for 5A. And what we would have for an alignment.
Sure, I'll go ahead and do it.
Fire away.
So I'm going to make a motion that we draw the line. This gets so weird to me because of the 3A teams in here. I'm going to say we draw the line between, it would actually be 13 and 16.
Okay.
To give 5A 12 teams, so they will have an even 6-6 split. And that's a pretty decent, 42 to 60 is a pretty decent jump. So I will say the motion will be after Centennial,
Okay.
before, would that be basic? After Centennial, but before basic, will be 5A, anything below would be 4A, and then 3A would be as presented, and the North would stay in 5A. Did I
Yeah,
get
got
everything?
it. I think you knocked down every pin there. Good job.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
Tony Polzing, 4A5A South, I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Habig, seconded by Mr. Polzian. Top 13 on the rubric scale, Boulder City left out as their 3A eligible, would go into 5A. 3A eligible as presented, the North in 5A for boys golf. Any questions, discussions, or comments here? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We are complete with golf. We move on now to swimming and diving. Two more to do, swimming and diving, track and field. And again, the comparison here, 2024 on the top with boys and girls and where teams finished. We also indicated placements down below where the northern teams had swimmers finish. And then we go 2025. Obviously, this year, Reed very much in contention for the boys title. It was a close three-way race. Coronado swam away with the girls title pretty convincingly. Again, our northern folks here for a 5A representatives, we are, and again, not to put words in your mouth, but we're good with having the North be 5A in swimming for the next cycle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you. When we start to look at the rubric, and no matter how much I blow this up, it's still small. You see all of the schools listed there. Where our line was, we took the top 9 into 5A. Obviously, that did not include Boulder City or Coral. And that would mean Centennial was the last team on the line between Centennial and Liberty, Virgin Valley not included. The gap there, roughly 340 points. Centennial with a boys program that was quite strong, scoring better than 2,000 points. Liberty's a much more balanced team, only about a 200-point difference between their girls and their boys program. And once you get past that, I mean, certainly Liberty could be included in that mix. Foothill could be included in that mix. We start seeing some different gaps in there, but I'll open this up to the committee and the discussion about where they feel we need to draw the line on this one. Ms. Habig, you've unmuted. I don't know if that's indication that you would wish to speak here or. Okay.
No.
Anybody else? Again, the natural line here is probably after number 2, but that doesn't quite work.
I agree with exactly what you said. There's 2 lines. It's just where we decide which one we want to use.
And really part of the reason that I went with my recommendation, ran that by Mr. Jackson, we were good with, is when you look at everybody from Centennial up, again, take away those 3A schools, you're looking at least one of those 2 programs that scored 2,000 points over the course of 2 years. Again, Liberty's very balanced. Don't get me wrong. That's that you don't get a whole lot closer than those 2. But you had one dominant program at least from everybody 11 up. If we don't have any further discussion or questions on this, and I'm certainly not cutting it off if you have it, we would entertain a motion from somebody. I'll give you another look to what we had alignment was.
So if I'm looking at this right, the breaks after 11, correct?
Yeah, I have the recommendation was for the break after 11.
Yeah. I'll make the motion if nobody has anything else to say.
You're on a streak.
I know, why not keep going, right?
Yeah.
Get us out of here.
Okay.
I'll make the motion that the 4A, 5A dividing line will be between 11 and 12.
Okay.
That the north will remain in 5A and that the 3A will be as presented with the 7 teams.
That should still be Elko. I promise I know the name of that school. Okay. We have a motion on the table from Ms. Habig. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Mr. Baldwin jumping in. Thank you, sir. Okay, we have a motion on the table from Ms. Habig, a second from, should be an N. Second from Mr. Baldwin to draw the line for the 5A in between Centennial and Virgin Valley, or Centennial and Liberty as Virgin Valley would be 3A. Top 11 minus the 3A eligible would be in the 5A. 3A would be as presented. 5A North for swimming and diving. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? One more to go, and that's track and field. And this one also, when we get to the rubric part of it, gets fun. We'll call it fun, sure. We look at the comparison 2024, how the southern teams and northern teams fared in 5A, where the North placers were. Again, track is 18 events. We look at the boys' numbers as well. Congratulations, Shadow Ridge. That's quite a statement in boys track. Centennial and Liberty very close. And you see the northern finishers there as well. And again, Mr. Art Anderson or anybody else in our northern 4A, 5A group, are we good with North being 5A here?
Art Anderson, 4A, 5A North. Yeah, again, the South has probably more of the top elite athletes, but we try to stay as competitive as possible. So we want to stay in the 5A.
Thank you for that, sir. Before we turn to the rubric numbers, I'm going to cheat down and show you that we went top 10 for the 5A for track and field. And we do have a viable 3A with potentially 9 schools there. Again, sorry for making you dizzy as we scroll all over the place. When we draw that line at 10, it actually is after number 11 between Legacy and Green Valley, because Moapa Valley is in that mix and Moapa Valley is 3A enrollment based. So the line would come after Legacy, a 94-point gap between Legacy and Green Valley. And when you start to get into the Green Valleys and the Mojaves, that is one program that's pretty good and one program that is maybe not keeping up quite as well. And that was the rationale behind the line there. Comments, questions, concerns? Mr. Jackson, please.
I think we're starting to see what we thought we weren't going to see a few years ago. If everyone remembers, a couple years ago, we realigned boys and girls track independently, and we heard from certain school district that we needed to put together because they only had one coach. And what we've got now is, I think what we're starting to see is a disparity here that is getting tougher and tougher to overcome with programs being put together. Because I'm just looking at this, just off the view of this, Green Valley, Mojave, Coronado. You see a disparity there between the boys program and the girls program, where what we're going to end up with, if we're not very careful with this as we move forward, is we're going to end up with a single gender sport dominating a team sport based on a decision this committee and the board made to put two sports together for ease of coach. And not that I'm saying the coaches aren't doing a great job. Please don't take it that way. What I'm saying is this, is eventually what's going to happen. Let's just use Green Valley, for example, at 1099 in their boys program, which would put them, if you look at that, in what place, Bart? 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth place. They're the fifth.
I'm sorry, sixth
strongest boys program. But because they're put together with their girls program, we are looking at a situation there. And I think we need to be very wary of that. Because Green Valley, Mojave, and who was the other one I said? I think it was Coronado. Coronado that had such a large disparity. Now, that being said, I don't envy the next motion, because I mean, I think we're going to have, yeah. Oh, there's thank you. That they were on the girls' side. So, I mean, that puts them in the top, puts them in what, 7th place, 6th place. So, yeah. And the solution obviously is one that's very difficult right now, and that is more coaches, which, you know, we have a room full of them. We just go pick them as we need them, you know. They're waiting, you know, the high dollar salaries we are able to pay, and you know.
And thank you, Mr. Jackson, for that. And that point's valid in several sports, right? We have combined tennis, we have combined cross country, we've combined bowling, we've combined swimming and diving, we've combined track and field. So it was something I was always wary of, but I understand the concerns as well, that you want your program to be together when you get to postseason, the coaching issue, another thing. Ms. Habig, your hand is up.
Two-part. I got a text message from a coach who was wondering, I guess this is going to kind of could play into some things, is I know we're looking at doing one like permanent site for cross country. Are we looking to do the same thing for track, or is that going to continue to go back and forth?
I got it, Bart.
Thank you.
Okay, so I like how this is taking on a life of its own. That's the discussion we've been having with the board, Tammy, as you're fully aware.
Yeah.
No decisions have been made yet.
Okay.
And with that aspect, I will always continue to find and work to get the best available venues. And if we can find somebody willing to commit for more than 1 year, we got to listen to that commitment. I can tell you, as of right now at 10:29 a.m. on this date, we have no commitment that we can say with any uncertainty is done. So we are still exploring those. We do know we have some avenues to go down. I will tell you, the one that has always been appealing to me is the cross country venue in Boulder City, because there is a price tag on that. That is the most appealing price tag out there, which Bart just put up his symbol for that, which is 0. I love that. Free is my favorite word at this point. So we will always continue to do that, but nothing has been established yet at all. And I know where the argument would come in is, what do we do if we have a 4A only south and we put the 5A north track meet in the north? What are we doing with these 4A kids? Because we all know that meet becomes a regional meet, and it doesn't have the same atmosphere, intensity, sensation, appearance as a state meet, and then you throw into the mix then the transportation end, which is a district issue that says I'm not transporting all those kids up north for when it's a standalone. And so we have to look at different things from that standpoint as well. So there's a lot to play here, but we're not there yet. We're moving there.
And I'll also add to that too, that we're fully aware at certain times of the year that, let's call it just available beds in one half of the state or the other, become a real issue for the side that's having to travel. Obviously, with our state tournaments in the spring being on the weekend of the Electric Daisy Carnival in Las Vegas, it makes rooms expensive for districts. There are a whole lot of factors that are going into this, but we also love the idea of being able to tell our schools this is what to plan for the next 3 years. We love to have that option out there, but as Mr. Jackson said, we haven't gotten the chisel out and etched anything in stone by any means yet. Mr. Larson, your hand's up.
I know in the past there was a problem because there were schools in the 3A and boys and 4A girls or vice versa. Now that 3A is a standalone, and even this past year for the first time, the 1A, 2A, 3A track meet was a separate from the 4 and 5. Did the 4A, 5A have separate region meets, or was that combined? I mean, if it helps that those are combined, so now coaches are at the same meet, even if their kids are 4A, 5A, and 3A is out of the mix in that, does that help?
What we did for the region meets, the 4A, all the first day meets were held, 4A and 5A were separate. They were at separate locations, but they were on separate days as well. And then they came together for the second day of their meet. 4A and 5A were all together for that from the second day. We used Harborview, Legacy, Durango were the 3 sites.
It sounds like the state meet would be the only one at this point where if a girls tracks in 4A and a boys in 5A, the state meet would be the only one where there might be an issue with all the coaches being able to attend. Is that what I'm hearing then?
No, there's another factor in this that just came into play. Well, it hasn't just come into play. It's really coming into play right now. We are also running into a very severe issue with AP and IB testing. For those of you that are familiar with IB testing, the issue with IB testing is there is no makeup now. And if the California, Nevada are given the IB test, those kids are in the room till the test is done, and not just for the kids in the classroom. Every kid is taking that test. So what we have discovered is we have to look at when we are now hosting some of these bigger events and moving them to days where there is no IB testing and AP testing or outside of the window of when that occurs. Doing so may push us to a situation, Dallas, and this is where we have to really be careful about this, is in the north, the 3A, 5A, and the 1A, 2A with them as well. The prelims are on a Saturday, and then the finals are the following Saturday. We may be looking at a situation where we have to do that in the south to help accommodate and alleviate that part of the problem, which is not a bad solution. It's a very viable solution, but then we run into a situation where do we have enough officials? Do we have enough time? Can we put everybody at the same site? And now if we have schools that are I'll take 3A out of the mix because everybody's aligned by number. If we have a 4A boys team and a 5A girls team, we got to how do we you see where we're going here? We may be trying to run too many sites at the same time, and we could run into a situation where we just can't, just due to possible personnel issues or timing and officiating. So it's a very cumbersome puzzle that I think we're putting together without knowing what the picture looks like and don't know how many pieces there are yet. So that being said.
Okay, other questions or comments here? Again, we start this discussion out by trying to figure out where to draw this line for 4A, 5A, for the southern teams, who goes into 5A, who goes into 4A. We would also, if there is no further discussion, entertain a motion on where that line should be drawn.
Tony Polsey and 4A5A South, I'd like to make a motion that you draw that line between 11 and 12 between Legacy and Green Valley. Or 5A boys and girls track.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. We are keeping the 5A in the north then as part of that also, Mr.
That is
Polzian?
correct. 5A would stay north as they wish to do so.
Okay. Ms. Habig is the second on that. Do you agree to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion on the table from Mr. Polzian, second from Ms. Habig. The line between 11 and 12, Legacy and Green Valley. Anybody above that line who is 4 and 5A eligible would be in the 5A. Everybody below it would be in the 4A. The north would be 5A in track and field. Any further questions or discussion?
Is the motion need to include that the 3A is as presented, or are we good with that?
Yes.
Mr. Pols-
3A
Mr.
as,
Polzian?
sorry, 3A as presented.
Ms. Habig is the second on that? Good? Good. Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Sorry, Dallas.
We're all picking each other up. It's a good thing. Okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. That sets up our alignments. We will send this out to all of our member schools yet today and ask for appeals to come back to us for next week's meeting. Let me zoom out here a little bit because it's driving me nuts. Okay, we don't have any appeals to hear today. Agenda item number 9 does not need to be something that we take care of today. Same thing with agenda item number 10. I don't know that we need to go through the review. We didn't change anything that we just did. So if everybody's good with that, we will move on to agenda item number 11. And Mr. Paul Anderson, just to double check legally, we're okay with that, right? We can remove item number 9 and number 10.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, let's move on to item number 11, comments here for the good of the order. And again, I will reiterate, this will go out to schools today. Those wishing to appeal would need to let us know in writing, and us being the NIAA office in writing. If we can get that by Friday, we can get it into the packet for next Wednesday's meeting. We will hear those appeals next Wednesday. That meeting will also be held primarily by Zoom. Any other comments for the good of the order from our committee members? Okay. Item number 12 is public comment. This time provides an opportunity for citizens to address the committee about any matter not listed on the agenda. Items raised during this portion of the agenda cannot be deliberated or acted upon until notice procedures of the open meeting law have been met. Should a member of the public wish to speak on a matter not listed on the agenda, it is asked that said person complete a public comment card and submit it to an NIAA staff member prior to the opening of this item. A limit of 3 minutes per person and/or 5 minutes for the spokesperson of a group may be imposed. It is requested that comments be directed to the committee as a whole. Comments deemed to be irrelevant, repetitious, offensive, inflammatory, willfully disruptive, or deemed to be personal attacks will not be permitted. Do we have any live public comment from our venues around the state today? Hearing none, Mr. Jackson or Ms. Wonder from our office, is there any live public comment?
No. I saw him hustle over there to check, so I'm gonna gamble on no.
No, there's no one here.
Okay, just a pizza delivery. That's good. Any, Ms. Wonder, any comments sent in to us electronically during the course of the meeting?
No.
I have none either. That concludes item 12, item number 13. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, again for your time. We will see you in a week. This meeting at 10:40 a.m. is officially adjourned.